The tip this week is about reading more complicated cable patterns, and in particular traveling cables. Most cable patterns, or one type of cable patterns, are where the cable goes vertically up the piece and there are crossings in that same plane of stitches. And in traveling cables, you can see that the cable travels across a background. And generally speaking, the background is almost always going to be reverse stockinette. There are exceptions, of course, but that is the typical one. Now, in this example, unlike the others, I have put in stitch markers so that you can, row markers rather, so that you can see where the cable crossings occur. And I find knitting these types of cables actually easier than regular cables, because most frequently, as you can see in this example, the crossing is going to be every other right side row. And if you're working flat, which a lot of cable patterns are, it is a real no-brainer. You're on the right side, you're traveling, you make a cable row. And another thing that can help you identify when to make the cables is the number of stitches in between the cables or where they're traveling over. And most charts and patterns are going to give you that information. And for this specific cable in the blog, I have done a chart for it, and you can see that that becomes quite clear. Now, reading these things after the fact can be a bit more tricky, because if you look at this, the cable row is actually right here, but the cable seems to start all the way here. The mere act of twisting here twists those stitches, as we saw in the other example of cables, but it also pulls that row over. And if you are unsure as to where the cables are starting, or where the first cable row is, flip it over on the back, and the back is going to be fairly instructive. This is the first place I can see a cable crossing. I've got my 2 knit stitches here, and we'll talk about why that's well, my 2 reverse stockinette, which on that side are knit stitches, why this is a knit stitch here. And if I am curious to know where my cable is going to be, all I need to do is find that crossing. Now remember that when you do a cable, it twists the row below. So this is the actual cable row. And as before, I've done the right side rows in a creamy colored yarn. Now if I want to find that, I go over here, and there you go. It's going to be right through there. You see on the wrong side. Now the other thing is in traveling cables, and depending on the pattern, the knit stitches are going to be traveling over a purl stitch. And what that means is if the cable is slanting towards the left, such as this one, is that these 2 stitches will be placed on a holder, and then the purl stitch on the other side of the knit stitches, like right there, is going to be worked first, and then the stitches from the cable needle. When it is slanting towards the right, the reverse is true. I will put this stitch, the purl stitch, on a cable needle, hold it to the back, knit the 2 stitches, and then knit the cable.